Isabel Turner stood in the courtroom, her late husband's worn leather satchel clutched against her chest. Her fingers dug into the straps, as if letting go would mean losing the last piece of him. The tension in the room pressed against her, suffocating, but she couldn't afford to crumble. Not now. Not when Owen had trusted her to stand her ground. On the opposite side of the room, Alexander Graves, one of the city's most ruthless attorneys, infamous for shredding his opponents apart with icy precision, leaned back in his chair, his lips curling into a smirk. No real proof, he drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. Just another grieving widow grasping at straws. Hoping for a payday she isn't entitled to. A quiet murmur rippled through the courtroom. For months, Isabel had endured the whispers, the veiled accusations, the weight of doubt hanging over her like a storm cloud. But today, she wasn't here to beg for justice. She was here to demand it. With steady hands, she strode forward and placed the satchel on the judge's desk. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I have evidence that will change everything." The room stilled. Even Graves' smug expression wavered, just for a second. From her quiet home in Crestwood to this very moment, Isabel's journey had been riddled with betrayal, loss, and a battle she never imagined she'd have to fight. As she unbuckled the satchel and reached inside, the weight of the secret she had discovered burned in her fingertips. Inside, nestled between legal documents and personal letters, was a hidden envelope, one that had the power to expose the tangled web of lies spun around her husband's death. The courtroom held its breath as she pulled it free. Would this be the truth that set everything right, or would it only unleash more chaos? Months earlier, Isabel had never imagined herself here, standing in a packed courtroom, facing people who saw her as nothing more than an obstacle. The scent of polished wood and the quiet rustling of papers blurred together in her mind, but her focus was locked on two men seated across from her. Ryan Turner, her late husband's estranged half-brother, lounged in his chair with an air of smug certainty. At his side sat Alexander Graves, exuding the kind of cold confidence that only came from years of crushing opponents into dust. They thought they had already won. The judge called for silence, and Graves rose to his feet, adjusting his expensive suit before delivering his argument with a calculated smirk. "Your Honor, this entire case is built on nothing but emotion. Mrs. Turner wants the court to believe in a conspiracy, but the truth is simple. She has no evidence to support her claims." His sharp gaze landed on Isabel, expecting her to shrink under the scrutiny. The quiet murmur of the spectators echoed in her ears, and for a moment, her chest tightened. But she inhaled deeply and held her ground. She had more than memories, she had the truth. It had been 6 agonizing months since Owen's tragic accident. A rain-slick highway, a fatal crash, and 1,000 unanswered questions. As Isabel struggled to pick up the pieces, Ryan had surfaced like a vulture, contesting Owen's will and accusing her of fabricating documents. She had been blindsided, dragged into a battle she never asked for. Owen's will, legally signed and witnessed, left everything to her. But Ryan's accusations, fueled by Graves' relentless attacks, chipped away at her standing. Doubt crept in like an unwelcome shadow. For weeks, Owen's satchel had remained untouched in the corner of their home, a silent reminder of a man she wasn't ready to say goodbye to. But one stormy evening, as rain pounded against the windows, something inside her urged her to open it. Among the pages of unfinished plans and old letters, she found it, an envelope hidden in a secret compartment. The moment she unfolded the paper, her breath caught. Owen's handwriting, his words urgent, deliberate, unraveled a truth she had never seen coming. He had known. He had seen the betrayal coming and left behind everything she needed to fight back. The document detailed Ryan's mounting debts, his financial misdeeds, and proof that he had been manipulating Owen's assets even before his death. And more than that, it revealed evidence that Owen's accident might not have been so accidental after all. That letter reignited the fire inside her. Now, standing in court, Isabel met the judge's gaze and spoke with quiet strength. "Your Honor, this isn't just about inheritance. This is about the truth. And I have proof. She stepped forward, placing the envelope onto the judge's desk with careful deliberation. A thick silence settled over the room. For the first time, the certainty in Alexander Graves' expression faltered. It was the smallest crack, but Isabel saw it. "This is a waste of time," he scoffed, but his voice lacked its usual bite. "This so-called evidence is nothing more than—" The judge raised a hand, silencing him. "Enough," the judge said, reaching for the envelope. "Let's see what Mrs. Turner has brought before the court." As the paper was unfolded, the courtroom leaned in, hanging on the moment that would change everything. Isabel had been underestimated for too long. That ended today. The judge adjusted his glasses, carefully unfolding the document. The weight of the moment pressed down on the room, every breath held in anticipation. Isabel Turner stood motionless, her fingers curled into fists. Finally, the judge spoke, his voice steady but charged with significance. "This document changes everything." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Ryan Turner shot up, his face twisted with fury. "This is a lie," he bellowed. "She's making this up." Beside him, Alexander Graves gripped his client's arm, his own composure cracking. Isabel remained still. She had expected their denial, but she wouldn't be intimidated. The judge called for order and declared a recess. In the hallway, Isabel exhaled shakily. "You handled that beautifully," came a familiar voice. Henry Lawson, the retired attorney guiding her, stepped forward with a reassuring nod. Owen would be proud. She nodded, though her mind raced. The fight wasn't over yet. That evening, Isabel returned home, exhausted but hopeful, until she saw the front door slightly ajar. Her breath caught. The lock was broken. Inside, drawers were pulled open, papers strewn across the floor. A sick feeling settled in her chest. She ran to the bedroom. The closet door was open. Owen's satchel was gone. A creak behind her. Her pulse pounded as she grabbed a cast-iron skillet from the counter. "Who's there?" she demanded. A shadow moved near the back door. A man in black clutched the satchel. For a split second, their eyes met. Then he ran. "Stop!" Isabel shouted, chasing after him. But he vanished into the night. The police arrived later, but the damage was done. The next morning, Isabel and Henry searched Owen's old workshop, her last hope. Dust covered everything, the air thick with sawdust and oil. Desperation clawed at her as she rifled through drawers. Then, her fingers brushed against a locked compartment. She pried it open. Inside, tucked between old blueprints, was another envelope. Thicker, heavier. Her breath caught. Owen had left backups. Relief surged through her. She still had a chance. Back in court, Isabel presented the new documents. But Graves was ruthless. He forged evidence, hired an investigator to discredit her, and fought tooth and nail. The trial became a war of wills. Through it all, Isabel clung to Owen's letter. "No matter what happens, don't let them silence you." Slowly, piece by piece, she and Henry dismantled Graves' lies. Finally, the jury reached a verdict. Ryan's bravado shattered. Graves sat motionless, his career in ruins. Justice had spoken. Months later, Isabel stood in her garden, stars bright overhead. Owen's letter rested in her hands, worn from rereading. She whispered, "Thank you, Owen, for trusting me, for believing in me." The battle had been long and brutal, but she had honored his memory. And that, more than anything, made it worth it.